Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next hour. India's President Draupadi Murmu holds bilateral talks with New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister and Governor General to boost bilateral ties. Wellington ratifies International Solar Alliance. Reserve Bank of India keeps repo rate unchanged at 6.5% for the 9th time in a row. GDP growth forecast for the current fiscal year unchanged at 7.2%. Bangladesh is set to get a new interim government headed by Nobel Peace Prize winning economist Muhammad Yunus after weeks of tumultuous student protests. Thousands of anti-racism counter-protesters rally in various cities of the UK amid widespread anti-immigration protests, heavy police deployment across the nation. And India's Neeraj Chopra aims for gold in men's javelin throw today, while Indian hockey team plays for bronze. Wrestler Vinesh Phogat announces retirement a day after she was disqualified in 50 kg freestyle. Up first, news from New Zealand. So after concluding a successful visit to Fiji, India's President Draupadi Murmu is in New Zealand on the second leg of her three-nation tour. On her arrival in Wellington on Thursday, President Murmu was accorded a traditional welcome in line with Maori traditions at Wellington. She was invited for the Hongi tradition, which includes the clasping of hands. She also received the Royal Guard of Honour by a tri-service contingent of 100 New Zealand soldiers. President Murmu attended a New Zealand International Education Conference in Wellington later and was presented with a memento that depicts the Maori art. Addressing the conference, President highlighted that India has made notable progress in the fields of education, and exchanges with New Zealand will further boost ties between the two countries.
The discussions and exchanges of this conference will pave the way for even stronger education ties. Heartfelt gratitude to Education New Zealand and to the Government of New Zealand for honouring India in such a special way. Let us continue to work together to build bridges of knowledge and understanding, and for creating world leaders through our educational collaboration.
President Murmu held a meeting with Governor General Dame Cindy Cairo of New Zealand. Both leaders hailed the warm and friendly relationship between the two countries and discussed various aspects of bilateral ties and ways to unlock the potential of India-New Zealand partnership. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Winston Peters of New Zealand called on President Draupadi Murmu in Wellington. They held discussions on strengthening bilateral cooperation and addressing global challenges. President Draupadi Murmu on Thursday paid floral tributes to a statue of Mahatma Gandhi at the Wellington railway station. Mahatma Gandhi's legacy is a guiding light for humankind. His timeless teachings continue to inspire us all. The President of India also visited Pukeo National War Memorial in Wellington and laid a wreath to pay tribute to the martyred soldiers at this memorial. Addressing media on India's President Draupadi Murmu's visit to New Zealand, Secretary East of Ministry of External Affairs Jaideep Majumdar said that the President was accorded a ceremonial welcome and guard of honour. He also said that she held bilateral talks with New Zealand's Governor-General.
Honourable Rashtrapati Ji was accorded a warm, traditional Maori ceremonial welcome on her arrival and was received by New Zealand's Governor-General, the Right Honourable Dame Cindy Kiro. She was accorded a royal salute and a guard of honour. She had bilateral discussions with the Governor-General on the range of subjects. Both leaders had a very warm meeting and carried forward their conversation over lunch. They discussed also about how both India and New Zealand have so many similarities between the two as mature democracies that believe in the rule of law and in multilateralism, and our common interest in the development and climate resilience of the countries of the Pacific.
On the President's meeting with New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, the spokesperson informed that the leaders discussed issues related to trade, culture, sports, defence and more.
The meeting today morning was that Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of New Zealand, His Excellency Mr. Winston Peters, paid a courtesy call on Rashtrapati Ji. The Honourable Minister has been to India recently in March. During the discussions, they discussed several issues relating to trade, culture, sports, defence, and exploring cooperation in traditional medicine.
President of India also announced a customs bilateral agreement and it was also informed that New Zealand has ratified the International Solar Alliance and joined it as a new country. Now, moving on, in Bangladesh, the interim government headed by Nobel laureate Professor Muhammad Yunus will take oath on Thursday. The Nobel Peace Laureate landed in Dhaka. Will land in Dhaka in a short while from now from Paris. Yunus's return comes as he is set to take on a significant role as the head of the interim government there, following a meeting with President Mohammad Shahabuddin. The 84-year-old Yunus was picked by President Mohammad Shahabuddin to lead the new interim government, a key demand of student demonstrators there. Earlier, Bangladesh's military chief, General Waqar-uz-Zaman, in a televised address confirmed that Mohammad Yunus will take oath at a ceremony on Thursday. The size of the government has not been finalized yet. Initially, some 15 individuals may take oath as the advisors of the interim government. However, one or two more individuals may be added. General Waqar hoped that the situation in Bangladesh will be normal within 3 to 4 days. He said those who were involved in the crimes committed over the past few days will not be spared and legal action would be taken against them. Now, India is keeping a close watch on Bangladesh's situation. Director General of Border Security Force Daljit Singh Chaudhary on Wednesday reviewed the security and operational preparedness of the paramilitary force along the Bangladesh border in Agartala. Director General of Tripura Police and DG Intelligence also attended the review meeting. Tripura shares an 856 border with Bangladesh, 856-kilometer long border with Bangladesh. BSF DG applauded the tireless efforts of the state forces in safeguarding the border by preventing any kind of infiltration and trans-border crimes. Meanwhile, on the intervening night of 6th and 7th August, the BSF, in a joint operation with Tripura Police, apprehended 11 Bangladeshi nationals who had crossed over to the Indian side illegally. And DD India's Jessica Taneja now joins us on this story. Jessica, can we expect Moil in Bangladesh to settle after the installation of Mohammad Yunus-led interim government there? Also tell us, what are the possibilities of holding an early election?
That's correct. With the return of Mohammad Yunus now to the Dhaka, former university student who took the demand from the current university students of Dhaka University, and his return, of course, now leading the government with 15 council members, is going to be crucial as to how their plans will work in favor of bringing in peace and stability in the region that has witnessed widespread violence in the last 3 weeks. All of us have been closely watching on how the country would now sort of get back order and make sure that things are in place, especially when it comes to the widespread protests that perhaps did continue to an extent that claimed 300 lives so far. But with Muhammad Yunus's return, there can be some normalcy expected because if you'd recall, before he was flying out from Paris on his way to Dhaka to lead the interim government, he did mention that he wants the army to give control to a civilian government, and that was one of the primary demands of the student protesters as well. And that, if met effectively, now that he has arrived in Dhaka, as we're told, would sort of begin the process or the transition towards peace, and somehow ensuring that no more innocent lives are lost in the process of the kind of turmoil we've witnessed in the last few weeks, Tanvi.
Okay. Jessica, can you tell us more about the man, Muhammad Yunus, his credentials for the top post? I mean, it's not his political debut. He has tried in the past to enter the mainstream politics back in 2007.
That's correct. He did try to enter politics in 2007, and that is the time where now ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina had said quite famously that to beware of the newcomers, but it was that attempt that was thwarted, and then later on he continued his work as a managing director of the Grameen Bank. Now we're talking about Muhammad Yunus. The man is 84 years old. He was in Paris briefly for a medical condition, and also attending a few of the Olympic events, as reports would tell us. Apart from that, he has been the person who the students look at very favorably, not only because he's a student of the Dhaka University, but he's also the person who was in a Fulbright scholarship and went to the United States to get his PhD in economics. And once he returned to serve Bangladesh, he started the microfinancing scheme, or the Grameen Bank, in the 1980s, that gave him the kind of popularity, and also a Nobel Peace Prize back in the day in 2006 for his work in microfinancing. So, of course, looked at as a favorable candidate at this point, looking away, at least the people of Bangladesh are looking away from dynast politics, not going with the Awami League and with the Bangladesh Nationalist Parties, the two parties that have been at the helm of affairs in Bangladesh's political landscape since its liberation in 1971. So it's crucial as to what Muhammad Yunus would bring in. And one last point, Tanvi, the bigger task in front of Muhammad Yunus would be, where a civilian government sort of ensures some peace and stability in the next 3 months, of course, free and fair elections, which is what led to this current crisis that you witness in Bangladesh, at least partially to be blamed on that, and the rest, of course, on various factors like economy and joblessness. But at the same time, it will be important for the Muhammad Yunus-led government at this point to ensure that law and order prevails, no more lives are lost, and there is no brutal crackdown on the civilians. At least if there are protests and pits, they shouldn't be handled the way they did in the last 3 weeks.
All right. Thank you, Jessica Taneja. And as you were speaking, we were showing live visuals to our audiences. Muhammad Yunus in Bangladesh now, and a new chapter in Bangladesh politics begins today when he swears in as the leader of the interim government in Bangladesh. You're with us on DD India News. Still to come on the show. Lebanon's hospitals gear up with emergency supplies amid heightened tensions in West Asia. Many global airlines revise their schedules to avoid Iranian and Lebanese airspace. And in one of the largest incursions into Russian territory, Ukraine enters into Russia's southern border, triggering fierce clashes. US Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz sell their vision to voters in Michigan and Wisconsin.
This summer, the world turns its eyes to Paris, and DD India brings you every heartbeat every victory and every story. Introducing our special coverage of the Paris Olympics. Experience the passion, the drama, and the triumphs. With exclusive reports, expert analysis, and up-to-the-minute updates. Join us as we bring the spirit of the Olympics to your screens.
Get ready for the ultimate sporting extravaganza on DD India.
DD India presents Champions Day Paris. Only on DD India. Every day at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I am Tanvi Taneja. On to West Asia now. With rise in tensions in the region, an emergency meeting was held by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation on Wednesday to discuss Iran's response on the killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh. Ali Bagheri Kani, Iran's acting foreign minister, stated that Iran's response to the killing of Haniyeh will take place at the right time and in the appropriate shape. The Hamas leader was assassinated on July 31st, but Israel has not claimed nor denied responsibility for his killing.
Undermines the prospects for a peaceful resolution, but also exacerbate the tensions within this region. The aggression and violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Islamic Republic of Iran by the assassination of a political leader on its soil is an act that cannot be viewed in isolation.
Meanwhile, Lebanon's healthcare system is bracing itself by equipping hospitals in Beirut and in the southern part of the country with emergency medical supplies and intensively training staff for potential emergencies amid fears of a full-scale conflict with Israel. Earlier on Monday, the World Health Organization delivered 32 tons of medical supplies to Lebanon's health ministry, including at least 1,000 trauma kits to treat possible war wounded. Hospitals in southern Lebanon, which are on the front lines of the cross-border hostilities between Hezbollah and the Israeli military, are worn down by years-long economic meltdown and have struggled to cope with wounded patients over the last 10 months. And DD India's Trent Murray is stationed in Beirut. He joins us live now. Trent, following the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and Iran's promised response at the right time and in the appropriate shape, are we headed for a serious escalation in the region?
Well, Tanvi, it certainly feels that way, and it's what many diplomats here are saying could be around the corner. We know that Organisation of Islamic Cooperation meeting, which was held yesterday, was actually requested by Iran, and we understand that they were wanting to discuss with some of their regional allies not just the fact that they believe Israel was behind the targeting of Ismail Haniyeh, but also briefing some of them on how they would respond. Now, of course, the concern is that Iran has got many allies and proxies within this region, including probably the most powerful one being Hezbollah right here in Lebanon. And so right now there really is just a waiting game, I think, for many here to see what the retaliation would be. All of the rhetoric suggests it will be significant and that it is coming, which is why many people here are on edge, as you can imagine. We've heard some reports in the past 24 hours of Lebanese citizens beginning to stockpile food and other supplies from supermarkets, diapers, nappies, rice, sugar, flour, just some of the most popular items right now. The government here is saying they shouldn't do that. The country does have 3 months' supply of food, medicine and fuel, but it seems that warning hasn't necessarily been heeded by some people who obviously are concerned that their country could be on the brink of a major war, given the rhetoric they're seeing from the likes of Hezbollah and Iran.
Trent, what could be done and by whom to de-escalate tensions in the region, or is that now a remote possibility?
Well, look, I think diplomats will say they will keep working the phones right down until the last minute. We know one of the official, well, not unofficial back channels, we should say, between Hezbollah and Israel is the UN peacekeeping mission. It's often forgotten that there are 10,000 UN peacekeepers currently stationed on the border of Lebanon trying to keep the peace. Now, interestingly, India is one of the largest contributors to that mission. Around 10% of those forces are Indian nationals, soldiers, I should say. And we understand they are playing a role in trying to deliver messages back and forth between the two sides. They're obviously right in the thick of it, quite literally seeing rockets fly over their head. And we know that both sides do have unofficial red lines. There are some rules of engagement. If Hezbollah is to respond and maybe only target Israeli military infrastructure, well, maybe that won't warrant a huge response by the Israelis. But if civilians are hit, well, then it's thought that Israel will respond. And it's thought that Hezbollah has got rocket launch sites embedded within this city under places like parks, schools, golf courses, and so that type of Israeli intelligence which they are putting out into the public has obviously got people concerned here that if the Israeli Air Force was to try and target some of those sites in any outbreak of war, then civilians could get caught up in it, just like we've seen in Gaza. So look, obviously tensions running red hot right now, a number of countries trying to dial down the tensions, but it does appear that both sides are not backing off from this planned response and planned attack, which appears to still be coming led by Tehran and its proxies.
Trent Murray in Beirut, thank you very much for those updates. Now, in lieu of the ongoing conflict, Egypt has instructed all of its airlines to avoid Iranian airspace from 1 to 4 GMT on Thursday. This has resulted in revised flight schedules and even cancellation of flights to avoid Iranian and Lebanese airspace. The move comes as a flight safety measure after information was received from the Iranian authorities. Egypt ministry states military exercises as the reason to avoid flying in Iranian airspace. Flights continue to pass over neighboring countries. Now on to the other bigger conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine has entered into Russia's southern border near a major natural gas transmission hub. In retaliation, Russia said on Wednesday that it was fighting intense battles against Ukrainian forces. It is one of the largest incursions into Russian territory since the conflict began. The acting governor of Kursk region, Alexei Smirnov, said that he had introduced a state of emergency in the border region. Regional officials said that meant restricting access to specific areas. Russia's National Guard said it had beefed up security around the nearby Kursk nuclear power station and its 4 reactors. In London, thousands of anti-racism protesters gathered to challenge expected far-right groups targeting migrants after the killing of 3 girls in a knife attack in Southport, triggering a wave of false messaging that wrongly identified the suspected killer as an Islamist migrant. The big crowds gathered without apparent opposition, with some police officers standing nearby and police vehicles closing the roads. The government has put together 6,000 specialist police officers to respond to any violence. The police said more than 120 people had been charged and 428 arrests have been made till now over the situation. Meanwhile, anti-racism protesters gathered in streets of Liverpool to challenge the expected far-right groups. The protesters included anti-racist and anti-fascist groups, trade unionists and left-wing organizations. Met Police Chief Sir Mark Rowley stated that his forces had been working in conjunction with the government to keep communities safe.
Clearly, we've been working with government. We've had several COBRA meetings this week. So as we as police chiefs across the country have been working together, putting these big operations in place to protect communities, we've been briefing government on that, and they've been putting in plans for other parts of government, local authorities to support us and support communities.
On to the U.S. elections now. U.S. Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris and her running mate Tim Walz have spent their first full day campaigning. The pair visited Michigan and Wisconsin, the same states as Republicans Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance, as both campaigns try to sell their vision to voters. DD India's Nick Harper has more.
The Midwest was in focus on Wednesday, with dueling Democrat and Republican rallies taking place. Following Tuesday evening's event in Philadelphia, Kamala Harris was out on the campaign trail with her vice presidential pick, Tim Walz. They visited the city of Eau Claire in Wisconsin, followed by the suburbs of Detroit in the state of Michigan. The Democratic Party appears to have embraced Harris's pick of Walz, with fundraising soaring to around $20 million in the 24 hours since her announcement. Republican J.D. Vance visited the same places on Wednesday, just in reverse, Michigan first and then Wisconsin. Donald Trump was not on the campaign trail on Wednesday, but did phone in to Fox News, during which he described Harris as a nasty person and called Walz a communist. Immigration is in the spotlight for both campaigns. The Trump-Vance ticket is trying to portray the Biden administration as weak on immigration as a result of the millions of illegal immigrants who've entered the U.S. in the last few years.
She has been the border czar for 3.5 years, and Americans have suffered because of it. I know this community's been affected by it. I know I've seen the consequences of it personally, but the fentanyl that the Mexican drug cartels are bringing into our country, it is killing Americans by the bushels, and it is unnecessary. It is happening because of failed public policy.
Trump is pledging mass deportations if re-elected. Harris, though, is promising to bring back the border security bill that Donald Trump scrapped while president.
Now, more than 20 states in our country have a Trump abortion ban, many with no exceptions even for rape and incest. And if he wins, we all know he will sign a national abortion ban to outlaw abortion in every state, even in Wisconsin. But we are not going to let that happen because we trust women. And when I am President of the United States and when Congress passes a bill to restore the protections of Roe v. Wade, I will sign it into law.
Meanwhile, new polling shows Harris has received a boost in support from black voters across the country, while Trump has picked up more white voters. Tropical Storm Debbie has scuppered plans for both the Trump and Harris campaigns to hold events in North Carolina later on Thursday. Those have been cancelled due to extreme weather and torrential rain. In Washington, I'm Nick Harper, reporting for DD India.
And next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. American music sensation Taylor Swift's official website announced the cancellation of her Austrian concerts this week due to a confirmed terror threat. A statement on the linked Austrian ticket site revealed that the authorities discovered a planned attack on the Ernst Happel Stadium. The 3 shows were cancelled for safety reasons, with tickets automatically refunded within 10 days. According to government data release, deforestation in Brazil's Amazon rose to a 15-month record high this year. Experts blame drought spells adding to the rise. Yet the deforestation levels are far lower under Lula than they were under his predecessor, Jair Bolsonaro. And San Diego's Zoo's Wild Park gave a sneak preview of Yuan Chuan and Xinbao, the first Chinese giant pandas to enter the United States in 21 years. The pandas arriving in June are adapting well to the circumstances there. The zoo collaborates with Chinese experts to aid their transition, providing fresh bamboo and wotu, a traditional steamed cornbread known as panda bread. Still to come on DD India News Hour. An expert take on RBI's decision to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.5% for the 9th time in a row. India's Minority Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju introduces the Waqf Amendment Bill 2024 in India's lower house of Parliament. You're with us on DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. A quick look at the headlines we are tracking at this hour. India's President Draupadi Murmu holds bilateral talks with New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister and Governor General to boost bilateral ties. Wellington ratifies International Solar Alliance. Bangladesh set to get a new interim government in Nobel Peace Prize winning economist Muhammad Yunus after weeks of tumultuous student protests. Thousands of anti-racism counter-protesters rally in various cities of the UK amid widespread anti-immigration protests, heavy police deployment across the nation. All right, news from India. The Waqf Amendment Bill 2024 was introduced in the lower house of Indian Parliament today. India's Minority Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju moved the bill to further amend the Waqf Act 1995. The bill seeks to address issues related to the powers and functioning of the state Waqf boards, as well as registration and survey of Waqf properties. The Bharatiya Janata Party has asserted that the legislation has been brought to provide justice to the minorities who have been harassed, as there were several complaints of poor minorities that their properties were taken over by the Waqf boards.
Sir, with your permission, I rise to move for leave to introduce the Waqf Amendment Bill 2024.
So what does the Waqf Amendment Bill 2024 entail? Take a look in our next report.
Let us take a look at the salient features of the Waqf Amendment Bill 2024. The bill enhances accountability and transparency in Waqf boards. A dedicated portal and database for Waqf properties will also be made. Every Waqf shall file the details of its properties within 6 months. The district collector will be the main arbitrator in case of any dispute. Also, the bill entails that no government property can be identified as Waqf property. The bill has provisions for separate Waqf boards for Bohras, Aga Khanis, Shias and Sunnis. Mutation of Waqf properties as per law will be done with notice to all concerned. Waqf boards will have a chief executive officer who may also be a non-Muslim. The central government will have the power to audit through the Comptroller and Auditor General of India or any other officer the Waqf board. The Central Waqf Council will consist of a Union Minister and 3 members of Parliaments. The members of Parliament may also be non-Muslims. The Waqf board will also have representations of 3 Muslim organizations and 3 Muslim law experts. The Central Council will also include 2 former judges. The Waqf board will include 4 people of national repute and senior union government officials. Central Waqf Council and state Waqf boards will have at least 2 women. Waqf boards will also have at least 2 non-Muslim members. The bill has provision that only practicing Muslims and legal owner can donate property to Waqf. Money of the Waqf boards will be used for the welfare of widows, divorcees and orphans. Bureau Report, TD India.
More from India. The country's central bank, the Reserve Bank of India-led Monetary Policy Committee on Thursday decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.5% for the 9th time in a row. RBI Governor Shaktikant Das, while announcing the decisions of the bi-monthly meet, said that the decision was taken with a majority of 4:2 by the MPC.
It decided by a majority of 4:2 members to keep the policy repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. Consequently, the standing deposit facility rate remains at 6.25% and the marginal standing facility rate and the bank rate at 6.75%. The MPC also decided by a majority of 4 out of 6 members to remain focused on withdrawal of accommodation to ensure that inflation progressively aligns to the target while supporting growth.
The RBI governor also said that inflation and growth are evolving in a balanced manner. The RBI retained fiscal year 2024-25 GDP growth projection at 7.2% on Thursday.
GDP growth for 2024-25, that is for the current year, is projected at 7.2%, with Q1 at 7.1%, Q2 at 7.2%, Q3 at 7.3%, and Q4 at 7.2%.
RBI Governor Shaktikant Das also stressed that India's domestic economic activity continued to be resilient, while the manufacturing activity also continued to gain ground on the back of improved domestic demand.
Domestic economic activity continues to be resilient. On the supply side, steady progress in southwest monsoon, higher cumulative Kharif sowing, and improving reservoir levels augur very well for the Kharif output. Manufacturing activity continues to gain ground on the back of improving domestic demand.
And we are now joined by senior economic journalist Anil Padmanabhan on the show for more perspective on RBI's Monetary Policy Committee decisions. So would you say that RBI's status quo on the repo rate is very much as expected?
Yes, Tanvi, more or less everybody had expected the Reserve Bank of India to hold the rates this time, and particularly because of the concerns on food inflation. Core inflation, as you know, has decelerated pretty steeply, but food inflation continues to be a cause of concern, and the governor particularly flagged the fact that inflation is a threat, and but food inflation is a threat, and that unless and until it settles, he is hopeful that it will decelerate in the next few months. But as of now, they continue to be watchful on the inflation front.
Okay. Now, the RBI policy decision was taken with a majority of 4:2 by the Monetary Policy Committee. Why do you think there was some difference in perception regarding a possible rate cut?
See, Tanvi, this has been happening over the last 2 meetings, that 2 members have have rather argued that the Reserve Bank of India is delaying the rate cuts and it could impact growth. So their argument is that these impacts, when you do a rate cut, it's not immediate, the impact, it's a lagged impact, and they might get the sequencing wrong. So they continue to voice that concern, and that's what we are seeing, that 2 of these members are continuing to argue for a rate cut at this point of time.
So under what conditions can we expect a policy rate cut by the RBI?
I mean, the governor was very, very clear on this. He said that all things are, macroeconomic circumstances are very good for India at this point of time. And when you compare it to the rest of the world, it is excellent. The only concern he flagged was inflation. And the Reserve Bank of India's task has been eased a little because growth has continued to be resilient despite the fact that the RBI has held rates for so long. So unless and until food inflation eases, there are indications that it could, because one, the southwest monsoon has been reasonably good. The Kharif sowing has been better than last year. globally food inflation has decelerated pretty recently, and all of this point to the fact that food inflation could decelerate. Unless and until food inflation decelerates, the Reserve Bank of India is signaling that it will continue to be hawkish on the rate cut issue.
Okay, Anilji, the RBI has retained its fiscal year 2024-25 GDP growth projection at 7.2%. Would you agree that this projected 7.2% GDP growth rate is extremely satisfactory, especially considering the low growth in major global economies?
See, Tanvi, the RBI has to be give it credit where it's due. They have been pretty conservative in their growth estimates. So even last year they were pretty conservative. Only towards the end of the fiscal year they upped their projections for last year, which eventually turned out to be 8%. And they were among the first people to signal that the growth rate was going to be higher than what was expected. So if they are projecting 7.2%, it is on the conservative side. So you should look at this as a conservative projection of growth. Yes, it is too early in the year to suggest any certainty on these numbers, given the vagaries in the rest of the world, which you have flagged just now. So yes, looking ahead, this growth rate looks reasonable at this point of time.
And lastly, sir, your view on the reaction of the stock market to the unchanged repo rate?
The stock markets did not really react adversely. They did go down briefly, but they are back up. Remember, the same stock markets rode the June 4th election verdict, and in fact recorded highs after that, lifetime highs subsequently. So the Indian stock markets are stable at this point of time, but there are a lot of factors in play, so we have to wait and watch. But they have not reacted adversely to the Reserve Bank of India decision to hold the rates.
Okay. Anil Padmanabhanji, thank you very much for your analysis on the takeaways of the MPC. All right. Dr. Arvind Virmani, member Niti Aayog, attended the 5th edition of the Global Trade Scenario Conference organized by the Confederation of Indian Industry, CII, in Mumbai on Thursday. He spoke about RBI policy forecast and about India's free trade agreement relations with the European Union and the United States of America.
From my perspective, the forecast is for policy, because I deal with policy, and therefore the uncertainty must be built into the forecast. So my forecast was and remains 7% plus minus 0.5%. Why plus minus? Because I know shocks will happen. The difference between the growth rate of China and India has been declining, and now India's growth trajectory is higher than China from here on. We need to have much closer trade relations with the EU and USA, because that is where most of the world's FDI comes from. So if we want to export, become Atmanirbhar, close that gap, and the only way to do it is for closer trade and FDI relations with EU and the US.
On to more news coming from India, stressing that competition and collaboration is required in the defence sector. Chief of Defence Staff of the Indian Armed Forces, Anil Chauhan, has said that there is a need to diversify India's stockpiles and manufacturing capability of ammunitions. The CDS was addressing a conference on military ammunition, Make in India, Make for the World, in New Delhi on Thursday.
Diversification of our vendor base amongst defense PSUs and the private sector for manufacturing even the same kind of ammunition. It would mean a policy that encourages competition as well as collaboration at the same time. A different kind of a civil-military fusion would have to be brought about in defense manufacturing, including ammunition. Another area where we need to focus is on the latest development and design of ammunitions. The family of ammunition has evolved over a period of time, from the era of dumb bombs and ammunition to precision-guided, smart ammunition, loiter ammunition. We need to diversify. We need to look at better ammunition. We need to frame GSQRs very intelligently, so we don't have frame GSQRs for older variety of ammunitions.
A look now at other stories making news in India. The Election Commission of India officials arrived in Srinagar to review preparedness for assembly polls in Jammu and Kashmir on Thursday. The delegation was led by Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar. Leaders of various political parties have also reached Sher-e-Kashmir International Conference Centre to meet the officials. The Indian Space Research Organisation will launch an Earth observation satellite into orbit on this Independence Day, that's 15th of August. The small launch vehicle developed by ISRO has low turnaround time and can accommodate multiple microsatellites, and these can be launched on demand in less time with minimal infrastructure requirements. It can carry a 500 kg satellite to a 500-kilometer orbit. The Indian Meteorological Department has issued orange rainfall alert after a catastrophic cloudburst that occurred near Samej and Baghi bridges. Search and rescue operations are underway as 45 people have been washed away in the flash floods. 13 bodies have been recovered till Thursday morning. Significant rainfall has been recorded in lower districts of Himachal Pradesh, Bilaspur, Hamirpur, Kangra, Chamba and Mandi. All right, more from Asia now. In Japan, an earthquake with a magnitude of 7.1 hit the southwestern Japan on Thursday, triggering tsunami advisories. But there were no immediate signs of major damage. Authorities issued advisories for a 1-meter-high tsunami for the Pacific coast of the western islands of Kyushu and Shikoku. In Miyazaki Prefecture on Kyushu, a 20-centimeter-high waves were already observed. You're with us on DD India News are still to come on the show. 8th August 2024 marks the 82nd anniversary of a pivotal movement in India's struggle for independence, the Quit India movement. We jog down the memory lane. Vinesh Phogat calls it quits a day after her dream of a medal were dashed by disqualification in the 50 kg wrestling category. And Benin's capital Porto Novo bustles with vibrant West African masquerade culture during their inaugural mosque festival.
This summer, the world turns its eyes to Paris. And DD India brings you every heartbeat, every victory and every story. Introducing our special coverage of the Paris Olympics. Experience the passion, the drama and the triumphs. With exclusive reports, expert analysis and up-to-the-minute updates. Join us as we bring the spirit of the Olympics to your screens.
Get ready for the ultimate sporting extravaganza on DD India.
DD India presents Champions Day Paris. Only on DD India. Every day at 6:30 p.m. IST, 1 p.m. GMT.
Thank you for staying with us on DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. 8th August 2024 marks the 82nd anniversary of a pivotal movement in India's struggle for independence, the Quit India movement. We now take a closer look at the historical significance of this movement, its impact and how it continues to inspire generations even today. DD India's Kriti Vadera has filed this report.
On August 8, 1942, the Indian National Congress under the leadership of Mahatma Gandhi launched the Quit India movement, also known as Bharat Chodo Andolan. The call for immediate independence from British rule resonated across the nation, with Gandhi's clarion call, "Do or die," sparking a wave of civil disobedience that spread like wildfire. The Quit India movement was a turning point in India's independence struggle. Unlike previous campaigns, this was a mass uprising that saw participation from all walks of life, from students, farmers, women and children. It demonstrated the Indian people's resolve to achieve freedom at any cost. Stories of the freedom struggle are included in school curriculum in India to help younger generation learn about the freedom for independence. Special braille books make it easier for visually impaired children to learn about freedom fighters.
The word "Quit India" in itself speaks volumes. People of India wanted freedom, freedom and Swaraj at no cost. Nobody bothered about losing their lives. The only thing that motivated them was, we will all join together and make our country free from the British yoke. Children of the age group of 8 and 20, they came out and they didn't care for their lives. What is important is how the common women came forward. Across our country, women who were in different age group, 15, 16, they all came out and they were part of the entire movement. The movement spearheaded not only in the urban areas, but even in the countryside.
Despite its non-violent roots, the movement was met with severe repression by the British authorities. Leaders like Gandhi, Nehru, Patel were arrested, and the British clamped down on press freedom. Yet the spirit of resistance could not be crushed.
The Quit India movement is a powerful reminder of how collective ideas can lead to success. Even today, it inspires us to stand up against injustice, violence, not just in India, but all around the world.
The Quit India movement was not just fight against colonial rule, it was a testament to the unbreakable spirit of Indian people. As we remember this day, it's important to reflect on the values of unity, resilience and the pursuit of freedom that defines this historic struggle. Kriti Vadhera's report for DD India.
And time now for some sporting updates. Up first, all the action from the Paris Olympics 2024. So today is going to be a special day for India as Tokyo Olympics gold medalist Neeraj Chopra will compete in the men's javelin throw final. Chopra aims to make history at the Paris Olympics. If he secures a gold medal or any medal, he will become one of the most decorated Indians in individual Olympic sports. Chopra stormed into the men's javelin throw final after he produced an 89.34 meters throw on his very first attempt to breach the direct qualification standard of 84 meters. In addition to Chopra, there are high hopes from Indian men's hockey team as well. They take on Spain in the bronze medal playoff today. The Indian team succumbed to a defeat on Wednesday in the semi-final of the Paris 2024 Olympics against Germany in a thrilling encounter 2-3. The team missed out on a chance to ensure at least silver for the Indian team, and they will now play the bronze medal match against Spain. And DD India's Narayan Singh gives us all the action live from Paris now. Narayan, a billion hopes rest on Neeraj Chopra as he aims for the gold in men's javelin throw final.
Definitely, Tanvi, if you take a look, we know that Neeraj Chopra, what are his credentials? He won everything. He won World Championship medal. He won Diamond League. Also, he's the defending Olympic champion. He won gold medal in Tokyo. Now it's time to defend his Olympic gold medal. I think this medal at the Paris Games, especially the gold medal, will be we can say, the most iconic moment in Neeraj's life. We know that what kind of athlete Neeraj is. On that day also, during the qualification, it was one and done show by him. He came and just threw a massive throw of 89.34 meters and just he shattered everyone there. We can say that in the finals also Neeraj will replicate that thing only, and if he manages to throw similar what he did in the qualification, definitely no one can stop him. He will leave a big legacy behind him, because we know that Neeraj Chopra, what it takes to Neeraj Chopra, all hopes are pinned down to Neeraj Chopra here. And also from the hockey team, we can say that we were unlucky. We lost the semi-final match against Germany. We played well throughout the tournament, right from the match 1 to the match against Australia. In the last group match, we defeated Australia after a gap of 52 years. And all in all, I can say that Indian team played one of the best hockey in this tournament. But in the semi-finals, they don't have their defender, Amit Rohidas, who was red-carded in the match against Britain. And I think because of that thing, India couldn't keep its defense intact. And now it's time to deliver again. And we know that it's Olympics. We can't take Spain team very lightly. Nothing is granted here. Nothing will be handed over to you. It will
one
be
has
a
to
tough
really
match, and we are hoping that definitely
fight hard.
India.
Yes, so hopes for 2 medals alive very much.
Definitely.
And thank you very much, Narayan Singh, reporting for us from Paris. And India's ace wrestler Vinesh Phogat announced her retirement from the sport a day after she was disqualified from the Paris Olympics 50 kg category. Phogat was on the cusp of a gold medal in the women's 50 kg freestyle wrestling event, but she was disqualified after exceeding her weight by just 100 grams during the morning weigh-in on Wednesday. Having made her professional debut in 2001, the year 2024 was the last that saw her compete as a professional wrestler. The nation stands with Vinesh Phogat. And as we wind up this edition of DD India News Hour, we take you to Porto Novo in Benin. The streets there are bustling with the vibrant West African masquerade culture during their inaugural Mask Festival, as colourful characters, including straw-clad characters and stilt dancers, paraded through Benin's capital. The festival showcased a diverse array of masks, both sacred and secular, from Benin and neighbouring countries. So that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. And for those on the go, you can download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.